Titans of Europe session lives right here on the main stage. From foundation models to factory floor, our panel is going to walk us through the humanoid robotics value chain. Joining us are Dr. Tilman Buchner of BCG, David Reger of Neuro Robotics, and the builders shaping where this category goes next. Please give them a big hand.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about the future of robotics. And before we jumpstart into the topic, question to you. Whom of you have ever bought a Billy bookshelf from IKEA? Maybe you could put your hands up. Okay. And I think all of you also remember the feelings and experiences seeing these 54 different items in front of you and then mastering the assembly challenge, right? So question today morning, we are here at the Deep Tech Momentum event. So the question is not if you could master the IKEA Billy bookshelf. Question is like, is a robot capable to assemble an IKEA bookshelf from the start to the very end? Just a guess. Maybe put up your hands. Do you think this is doable today? Who thinks we can make it? I see 1, 2, 3. Christina, very promising. Perfect. So let's see. Yeah? So I'm an engineer by training. So when I look at this challenge, I subdivide this into, let's say, 3 basic capabilities we need to look at. And first and foremost, it starts with visual perception. As you can imagine, if you look in front of you, seeing these 54 items, first you need to have visual perception capabilities. Second, it will be about dexterous manipulation. So dexterity is really a capability where humans are really good at. And last but not least, it's about the workflow, because you need to figure out if you put the wooden backside first before you do the screwing job or vice versa. So let's have a look and try to understand how a robotic system and a vision system is looking at this. So this is a typical scenario, how it maybe looks like in your living environment when doing the assembly job. And this is how the robotic system looks at this. So good news is we did significant improvements in the past 12 to 24 months. So if a robotic system is looking at the scene, it can not only count the number of items, it can identify the so-called 6D pose. We know from high school, 6D means X, Y, Z, and these 3 Euler angles, they describe actually the position of an object in 3D space. And good news is that these new foundational models, either YOLO or the NVIDIA Foundation Pose or Intrinsic Vision model, they can do this for any item, even in front of an unknown environment without pre-training. And this is a significant improvement, which helps us very much to accomplish, let's say, the vision challenge in assembly in IKEA Billy bookshelf. So this is actually just task number 1. Question now is, what about dexterous manipulation? So dexterous manipulation means exactly what you see here in the video, that a robot also needs to try to insert the dowel into the wood. So what is the challenge? If you compare this with the first capability, with visual perception, I think it's obvious for everyone that we have a lot of training data to train these vision models. In the physical world, it's a challenge, because none of us really understands what are the motion trajectories and the forces at our finger points when we do, for example, card folding or assemble a bookshelf. And this is the difficulty. So how to get this data? And let me introduce a couple of approaches where we see how robotic companies try to accomplish this. First, it starts with human demonstration. So the idea is that you do a certain movement, we track and trace your motion trajectories, and then the robot will follow actually your movements. But this is also called behavior cloning. And you see this here in the video. Yeah, so we start actually a demo, a certain movement, and then the robotic system tries to follow. As simple as this starts, it gets a little bit more complex. Why? Because we need to work on the data diversity. You could think of you track and trace this maybe 20 times, 40 times, but then synthetic data generation and photorealistic rendering comes into play to really build on the diversity of your data set. Now, question is like, is this an approach which helps us to put the data flywheel into action? And the answer is, unfortunately, this approach is really hard to scale. And scaling means, yes, you can now make significant investments into building up these facilities for demo purposes, but here we talk about maybe 10 over 3 hours of training data, which is around about, let's say, 6 weeks of training, which you need to put into individual handling operations. So the idea is, on the next step of development, that we maybe try to cut out the robot out of the equation. And this is where new principles comes into play, so-called universal manipulation interfaces. So you put on some data gloves and some other manipulation interfaces, and you can start capturing without a robot in the loop. And this is also a quite interesting and promising approach. And if you look into the numbers, now we can move from 10 over 3 to 10 over 5 hours of training, which is, roughly speaking, around about 50 years of training. Yeah? So we move from 6 weeks to 50 years of training. So we can significantly lift up the data capturing in the physical world. And now, if we follow, for example, what NVIDIA has also announced at the GTC conference a couple of weeks ago, this is a next step of development, and this is called egocentric videos. The whole idea of egocentric videos, so videos which capture a human being out of the eye perspective, that's not new. Yeah? I think it has been invented in the 70s by Steve Mann, who was one of the first who actually started capturing day-to-day operations by mounting a camera on the head. But it took us until 2022 to figure out what to do with the data. And the results now are very promising. Why? Because if you look, scientists, they actually measure the validation loss. What does this mean? Validation loss means if you capture egocentric videos and you measure the validation loss, if you figure out that the validation loss decreases the more data you generate, then this is a really perfect indicator that at the end, the model is learning real principles of motion and not simply memorizing the individual robotic videos. So the good news is, with the new egocentric model from NVIDIA, which combines all 3 aspects we introduced previously. So they use 21,000 hours of video, 50 hours of data gloves, plus 4 hours of human demonstration for fine-tuning. And you see here on the right side, the examples and results are very promising. So this brings us actually to the overall assumption that capability number 2, the dexterous manipulation, it really works well. So we could put it like the hands are getting very good and very fast. So now there's just the third capability. What about workflow planning? Workflow planning, these are now the tricky things. Why is this so tricky? Well, the question is like, the VLMs, the vision language models, they are really good in understanding the user intent, right? So you can talk to the system, you can prompt the system understands the speaking word and your intent, but question is like, how good is the VLM in understanding the real world? And if you look into this question, there are 2 aspects which are of utter importance. First, it's about the perception capabilities. We need to differentiate between perception and prediction. Perception means there are 5 key perception capabilities we really need to work on. This is visual perception, this is 3D spatial understanding, motion processing, so to understand if you see an object moving inside a video to really understand and track and trace this motion. Temporal understanding, if you have 2 objects in the videos moving, that you understand like who starts first and who was second. And quantity processing. But this is not all. This is just to perceive the real world. Yeah, so you have the real-world environment. You need to have a model which understands the real-world environment and then build up the current state of the world. And then in the next step, it's all about what happens if we manipulate the real world. And here there are three key capabilities we need to look at. One is compositional inference. What does this mean? Think of you have an understanding of how to insert a drawl, a dübel. And you also have an understanding of what it takes to align a back panel. A human is capable to combine these two capabilities and also to figure out how to put a back panel and align this with the front panel, even if you have never done this before. This is compositional inference. The second is transitive inference. So as a human, you are really good in understanding if A comes before B and B comes for C, that also A comes before C. Which sounds so simple, is a really tricky question for a VLM model. And last but not least, it's about the mechanistic knowledge. It's not about the how, but more like why does this work? So, for example, that you understand, okay, I need to align first the IKEA Billy back panel with the left panel before I do the screwing job. Otherwise, it will not work. And now if we look a little bit into science, there is the World Model Atomic Benchmark, which really is doing an investigation into how good are we along these different dimensions. And it's very interesting. So we are quite, let's say, promising or okay-ish in the perception capabilities, as you see here in the graph, but there is some way to go in predicting. You see this especially here on the left side of this graph, where we really do not meet human capabilities. And you also see this a little bit illustrated in the video. I did the video 2 days ago with the latest version of Google Veo 3.1, and if you look into the video, it fails, because you cannot move a wood through wood in the real world. It doesn't work. So question is like, how do we deal with this? And I think IKEA brought us a solution 40 to 50 years ago. Because what IKEA is delivering with every Billy bookshelf is a manual. And technically speaking, a manual is an abstract representation. Because the manual is not talking about the texture of the wood in each and every pixel. No, the manual is explaining you step by step what actions are needed to accomplish this task. And I think this kind of thinking is also what drives robotic companies as of now. And we have David Reger also today with us. So curious to see also what Neura is thinking about this. Because the today's approaches, there are twofold. There is one belief that we could do is with just predicting the next pixel. But the difficulty is, think of you have a pixel, you have an image with 2 million pixels, then mathematically speaking, we have 1,999,900 pixels with zero information, which is the loss. So it's really hard to generating just the next image to really understand the real world. So there are ideas, if you follow scientists like Jan LeCam or others, if you look what VJEPA is doing, the Joint Predictive Architecture approach, they put up this idea from IKEA. So moving into the abstract representation space, finding the actions to accomplish the next task. So we really need to work on how to translate the real world into an abstract representation space, because this is also the way how a human is actually learning actions. So to put things a little bit into perspective and closing the loop to the very beginning, I ask you, who of you is thinking that a robotic system today can accomplish this assembly job? I come today morning to the conclusion, good news is, I think 2 out of 3 capabilities are really ready to use. They are industrial grade. We have significant improvements in visual perception. We do significant improvements in a fast speed and dexterous manipulation. Only the third capability, the reasoning capability, is something we need to work on. And I would like to see it also as a chance also in Europe. So let's be optimistic and let's put really the efforts into this, because the one who is mastering this last challenge will be the one who is also mastering the market, because all the robotic systems, all the humanoids, they heavily rely also on that we can solve this third question. So with this, I will end and hopefully give you a quick introduction into the world of robotics. Thank you. And with this, I will hand over to David from Neura Robotics. Thank you.
Thanks, Till. And thanks for preparing also my session. So, hi, everyone. My name is David, founder and CEO of Neura Robotics. Hi, Christina. Yeah, and thank you for sparing your precious time with me. I will also talk about actually this pretty same topic. So, about how Neura does solve actually, let's say, also the third non-solved issue, which we just heard. And I'm very, very thankful that you're actually going with me on this journey now. So a little bit about why we do things, I think it's very important to answer. So yes, there is actually a problem on the horizon coming towards Europe super fast. And here I'm talking about 2030, we will have about 7 million less human labor just here in Europe. If you take China, it's actually getting hit even harder. It's about more than 80 million, and Japan, same as actually whole Europe. And I think this is a problem we can only solve not just by using AI, but actually somehow making AI physical. And yeah, so it's not just about having less worker, but actually also finding solution who's going to take care of people which actually created this wealth and also, how to say it, this good life we were living in. And for that, we see, let's say, robots as one possible solution. The other, let's say, reasoning why I think robots will actually take every physical task on planet, and like in a let's say, not very long time ahead of us, it's actually the reasoning of that humans simply take also a lot of time to actually get trained in all kind of skills. So if you're looking into basically like humans and how they get trained, and I think this is something where we are in Germany pretty good at. I think there was a lot of countries, like some time before, like pretty jealous on the German Ausbildung. Yeah, it mostly took between 3 and 4 years, and then you get expert in a certain field. And in the same time, there is also other things I would like to talk about. Is right now we are partnering with all kind of partners out of industrial space, and there is also a very clear fact that even the lowest value-bringing task, like even a task which basically has no quality dependencies, no know-how dependencies, really a low value-bringing task will never get, like mostly the companies calculating about 3 hours for instruction and time to actually let a human work on this task. And this is just the lowest value-bringing task. A little bit of quality involved, a little bit of know-how involved. This task will actually just, let's say, the time to skill will raise up to weeks, months, and even sometimes into years to actually get the products done. And this is actually where we see the biggest possibility right now. So the KPI Neura is mainly focused on to solve is actually not just building the brain, which can actually solve all your problems, but actually building the tools, the platform, and basically a base brain, which can help you personally to train the robot in the fastest time. And here we are talking about, again, even complicated tasks, like in times like 3 to 4 hours. It sounds like pretty far away, but I can actually tell you it's not, because here, for sure, let's say it gets today still longer for the most of the task, but we see actually even like the robot and the brain behind will not make too much difference between, let's say, a very difficult task for humans and actually the task for robots. So I just like also to mention one, because you were talking about the dexterity of the hands and in the same time also the vision part, and this is also a big differentiator from Neura to the most players worldwide, is simply that we do not believe in vision language action models, and we do not think that a vision language action model is actually a physical AI. It's just a small piece of a physical AI brain, and this is basically and this is why I love to have the example of swimming, because this one is also showing that the most of our tasks are actually not even just trainable by our brain, because there's a lot more coming to that. So and like here, mostly I also ask the question, like, do you think you can watch a video for 1 year of swimmers, like in all the close-ups, and then be a swimmer afterwards? So if you say yes, then you're probably not a swimmer, and you did for sure not learn that way to swim, and please don't try it out yourself. So actually, like in swimming, you can't learn swimming by somebody telling you how to swim without yourself going into water, with just watching a video, or just imagination, like simulation, basically. You will never be a swimmer, and that's actually a guarantee. And like how to get a swimmer is actually going into the water and actually trying yourself out, and training it. And how? And what do you train with that? Not just the brain, because the brain gets it like super fast, but actually you're training also your nervous system and your reflexes, basically, the memory effect of your muscles, like how to swim, the reflexes of your lungs, how to breathe, to actually be a swimmer. This is now, yes, we don't plan at this time to make a robot swim, but in what we do is actually, the most of the tasks are requiring actually the same capabilities as swimming. So even putting two parts in each other in a precise way, while actually where you have two fittings, it's not possible to do it just with the vision. For that, you would need actually precise systems. And if you're talking right now about dual arm systems, whatever, they will never be precise enough to actually get it done. So it means you need more capabilities in that space. And what we call actually, how to say it, hearing, seeing, and feeling. Because the slides are completely different than I actually was planning to, but I just keep going. Are you planning to change it, or should I just finish it that way? Okay. So, but in the end, what we do is we actually, let's say, build not just the brain part, but actually also here collaborating with partners. We just recently announced one of the partnerships, and having actually the next step developed of physical AI is actually not just the brain, but also the nervous systems. So it means we're calling it smart limb concept. It means you're having like different kind of points where you have like basically a chipset which is running like super fast, more abstract than the brain, but it's actually reactive in a millisecond to 5 millisecond time, while the brain part is always delayed between 2 and 400 milliseconds. And for that, if you have that in place, I think the next reasonable place is actually that you need to start training them. Also, like a human needs to go into the water, we are actually right now building up the training facilities worldwide. So we started with one in Munich, with TU Munich in a collaboration, but also now expanding it to Aachen, to Zurich, to everywhere on the planet, basically also in Detroit, Tokyo, and actually Hangzhou. What will you find there? It's actually a physical place where you will find like minimum of 100 humanoid robots or different form factors. This is also a big differentiator from us to others, is that we have them all. And at the same time, you're getting actually not just the robot which can actually solve everything, but the robot with a foundation model which is good enough and smart enough to do basic things. And what you can do there is basically just remote control the robot, train a task, and with this, actually train your brain account. I hope I'm not going to, and that's how we call it. Like you're having everyone actually who is going to train our robots will have their own brain account on the Neuroverse platform, and then you can basically fine-tune the model for your specific task. And there you will actually see it. Why is this possible? It's only possible because it takes actually just hours instead of, let's say, weeks, months, or whatever, which it would be like with just vision language models, which the most things wouldn't work even. So this is one of our, let's say, big change with it. And with this, there is actually another, how to say it, big advantage in the way we think right now. It's that you're not just having the training infrastructure and then you're training your brain account. And this time you can actually always decide what is your core know-how and what is actually something you want to share with others. And so we made the decision pretty easy, so you're only getting charged when you actually want to keep your know-how. And you're actually, it's fully free to use the whole infrastructure if you're actually just training for all the others around you. And the good thing is that all the companies all over the world have actually their own know-how and they want to keep it. So, thanks. Now my actual slides are there. So this is the biggest advantage we have. And I think the biggest reason for our existence is because we saw that it doesn't make sense actually to just train one brain for the global and have everyone actually having your know-how on one, let's say, brain, because it will actually make you disappear, because the reason for existence, for your existence, is mainly because of your know-how and the capabilities you have, which others don't have, or they're not as good as you. And this is actually the advantage of our platform and how we do it. The good thing about that, everything you trained, you can also put on our platform, and you can actually monetize it. So we do see right now a lot of partnerships, yes, which are training their brains, but also the next level of basically monetizing, and companies which are just built up to actually train the brain for specific tasks which they put on the platform, so others don't have to train it anymore and can simply buy it on the platform. I have here a short video. I'm not sure if the music is not on, then I just talk to it. I think that was the plan. You will see here, like, just simply, it's still the older version, because the newer version we're going to present soon. So it's the Gen 3 of our robots. But here you see actually always a robot which is basically able to, let's say, solve all kind of little issues. And mostly what you see is that it reacts actually not just on the vision, but actually on what it feels, on the hands, basically. So I think the video is cut together with a lot of different tasks, mainly trained by our Neura gyms. So it means you can really go there, train something, and after the training, you can actually just deploy it on any other robot in the field, which can actually do it. So we also working right now, even having a robot being able to actually communicate with other robot arms, because we do believe that will be not just humanoids, but actually also different form factors of robots, and they will actually even be able to program them in the way as humans do today, to just basically make our lives easier and better. You also see here one of the behaviors, like and how we do it. At this time, mostly we are using basically this sensor suits. If you really remote control the robot, and the robot basically has all the capabilities of feeling, so it has tactile sensors, which we stream in the same way, like with the vision, and actually the how does it the audio. I'm already too long, or and here you simply see, like, yes, this is something you don't have to train anymore. That's a good thing. Mostly, like, this is something that's just happening in the labs. So here you see how the robots look underneath, or the skeleton of it. But basically, they're made to actually be stable around you and safe around you. And I'm very, very happy. And this is the newest generation, 3.5. So to serve humanity with everything we are doing. So, but maybe one thing. Should I? Sorry. Just a smart robot, it's actually not enough. And that's also something I would like to bring today as an impulse into your brain, because it does not make sense to have a robot walking up the stairs, opening a fridge and seeing what's inside. It simply can connect with the eyes of the fridge and see what's inside. And through another layer, we built actually on the Neuroverse platform. So it's a platform which is basically connecting devices to actually sensors with AI models, in the same time also complete infrastructure projects we have on it, so you can actually connect a complete city. And this is also the big vision of ours, that you're having an agentic AI tool actually using even the physical AI tools to actually make our lives easier and better around us. So I will not have the time to simply, let's say, go now into the details also of the video, but you will probably find them online. So we do believe that physical AI is actually the most important step in humanity. And I do believe, actually, it's right now the last and, in my opinion, the only step right now for Germany also to drive actually the economy as further that we actually, to build actually the newest, biggest economic pillar of the existence of Germany. And this is also the big plan of Nura, so being the biggest taxpayer of Europe in the close future. So thank you for your precious time.